that we can reach the full potential of what not only the tech ecosystem can offer, but what we can do for this world. And I think that's what's exciting in this moment. But what's most important is that we have to be very intentional about that impact. It can't be an afterthought. It can't be a side project. It has to be intertwined in every single decision that we're making, in every single move that we're making, and how we're shaping our companies and the policies that drive those companies.
And I've seen you do that personally, from the work you've done in the United Nations in terms of working to abolish the child death penalty. I've seen you do that as you advise the president of the NAACP. So you've been so successful in your career, but at the same time, you've talked a lot about your career being this winding path and struggling with some of the issues of imposter syndrome. So talk a little bit about that for people who are in this industry, who are working on emerging, creating their own paths and having an impact. How should they think about navigating that? What does that look like for them?
Thank you for that. And I talk about imposter syndrome because I think it's important that we own all of us, our whole selves. One of the dangers, I believe, of technology has been the fact that we constantly find ourselves living in highlight reels. We see people's highlight reels all the time, but we also don't see the low points in addition to the high points. And I think it's important for me to talk about my own imposter syndrome because I didn't see a reflection of myself in the industry when I was recruited into Silicon Valley. But at the time, I had helped win a landmark U.S. Supreme Court case. I had lobbied in the United Nations. I did all these things, but I did not see a reflection of myself. And I think it's really important for us to understand it's very difficult to strive to be something that you cannot or do not see. And that is why representation is so vital and so important. It's important because it does a number of things. Number one, it allows for people to see a reflection of themselves. Number two, it helps people get out of their own way. Because often, we will get in our own way because society will often reinforce whether it's what we watch, the ads, what we see over and over again, who's on stage. There's a reinforcement of this idea that we might not be enough. But what I soon learned, and I think what many will learn, is that when you get out of your own way and step into your rightful place, that not only is there a place for each and every one of us in this industry, but there's an absolute need. There's a need because statistically we have seen that we benefit, our companies benefit from the rich diversity of thought, of experience, and when we bring that into a company, we bring that into an ecosystem, we're just that much better. Because talent is distributed equally, but opportunity is not always done so. So it's important not only for us to take up space, but it is also important for us to create space. And so I would challenge anyone in this room that if you are in a space, any meeting, any room, and if it is not reflective of the rich diversity of the country in which we live, then you must challenge yourself to change that room, to change the status quo, to create space. And sometimes it's difficult, but that means sometimes you have to give up your seat to create space for others. Because if we fail to do that, and I think particularly with Web3, when we look at Web 1.0, Web 2.0, many people, vastly communities of color were left behind. And we have an opportunity now, at the beginning of this great industry, to ensure that we have everyone at the table and we all get there together. And I think it's important for us to understand the power of inclusivity, not only because it's the right thing to do, but it also makes economic sense for us to do. When we look at Black households alone, Black households constituted in 2019, pre-pandemic, over $800 billion in buying power. When we think about the economic power behind behind being inclusive, not only does the math make sense, but it also makes sense in what is the right thing for us to do. And I think we have to start taking our rightful place in this industry. Not only the overall tech industry, but particularly Web3, which I believe is a great opportunity to take the entire nation and world forward.
I love that answer. And as I think about it, I think about some of the other things that you've said about how innovation can either be part of the problem or innovation can be part of the solution. So now how do you tie those two things together?
Yeah, I think when we think about tech as a great divider, I think there's both the pros and the cons of what the tech industry can do. I think we've all seen misinformation and disinformation and the dangers of what that can do to democracies. I think we also see the power of what blockchain can do, particularly for global societies, the ability to advance financial technology, and how it can change individual lives and community. I mean, Chet, you yourself, you know, you got involved with cryptocurrency when Bitcoin was trading at $700. So shout out to Chet for being on the front end. But you could have easily said, I don't understand this is confusing, there's no real place for me in this world. And I think often we will hide behind lingo and buzzwords that make the barrier to entry seem very difficult for people who may want to get involved. And so I think that there's an opportunity here, particularly with Web3, is to be a great opener to help lead society forward. I mean, let's look at the continent of Africa. The Vice President of the United States just wrapped up an amazing and inspirational trip on the continent of Africa, where she was focused on investments on the continent of Africa. There are recent statistics that show that by 2050, 1/4 of the world's population will live in Africa. So how are we thinking about how technology such as blockchain and incorporating in our vision forward the global world? Because there's real opportunity there. And so that's where we can be a place where technology can bring us together. But if we're not intentional or we put a blind eye to the dangers of technology, then I believe that it could set us years and years back. And so it's important for us to be not only intentional about making sure that we root out both systemically all of the disinformation, all of the systemic racism that permeates from our society. Let's not let it get into our tech ecosystems. And we have to be very intentional about that.
Thank you. Now, we are at Miami NFT Week, so you know I gotta ask you, switching gears just a little bit, who's your favorite NFT artist?
Wow, okay. Well, you know, my favorite NFT artist is a young woman by the name of Nyla Hayes. Have anybody ever heard of Nyla? Yay, yes. So Nyla is 14 years old. She's a young black girl who recently found and decided that she wanted to combine her love for dinosaurs and drawing dinosaurs for her vision to create real impact around the empowerment of women. And so she taught herself how to create NFTs, and fast forward, Nyla has sold more than $6 million in NFTs. If you're familiar with the long names, I actually heard about Nyla from my good friend Chris Lyons with Andreessen Horowitz, and I've just been so impressed and fascinated with Nyla's story, because I believe Nyla is an example of the future. She is someone who saw the power of NFTs, what it could do, how it could lead us forward, and she taught herself the technology, and she's out there at 14 years old, not only creating art that speaks to power and the empowerment of women, but she's also transforming communities, because she's doing the very important next step of sharing how she did it with other young people. And so I think when I think about Nyla, I think about the promise of what Web3, blockchain, and NFTs can do. It can change individual lives, it can change communities, but it can also lower the barrier of entry so that everybody can thrive. Because ultimately, what everybody, I believe, in this country wants, we just want the ability to thrive. We want the ability to be able to live freely, to love freely, and to be able to have equitable, quality lives. And I believe that when we look at Nyla's story, I believe that she's an inspiration to me because she's an example of how the future can be transformed. Whole communities and individuals can be transformed with the power of NFTs and Web3.
And that's a beautiful story about how that can really change the transformation and the future, right? And so as the CEO and founder of Full Circle Strategies, you advise companies all across the country on the future. You, as an angel investor, you get an opportunity to talk to and meet with a lot of companies. So you're seeing what's coming along the pipeline in terms of emerging technologies. So talk to us a little bit about the future. What do you see as the emerging challenges and opportunities as we move into this new era of NFTs, technology, AI?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of areas. I'm going to talk about the challenges, and I'm going to end on the positive because I like to think about the positive. I think that as someone who spent a lot of time in Washington, who lives in Washington, D.C., that it's going to be very important, and I don't like to think of it as necessarily a challenge, but an opportunity. And it is an opportunity for this industry to build a more robust, stronger relationship with Washington and policymakers. The truth is that much of this industry is still unknown. And where there is uncertainty and where there's an unknown, there is also a need to create policy and oversight. And I think that it is at the benefit of this industry to build relationships and inroads to Washington and not try to circumvent Washington. I think we saw in Web 2.0, I think we saw the dangers of creating that friction, but when we work together and we build relationships with policymakers, when we are educating policymakers and working with policymakers, we save and keeps consumers safe because that's really important. But while not stifling the ability to have innovation. So I think that's a real opportunity is for this community very early on to really combat the misconceptions and what's misunderstood about the industry. Finally, I want to close with what I think the positive is. And I think, again, it goes back to our ability to utilize technology to bring us forward. To utilize technology to take those that have been pushed to the margins, pushed to the side, and put them back into the center where they belong. And I think that's the power of technology. That's the power of NFTs. And I think that in the future, when we are intentional, when we are absolutely clear that we are doing this for the purpose of moving society forward, and that is at the center of what we're doing, I think that we can create powerful change in the world and beyond.
See, we've only been here for 15 minutes, and I think many of you can understand why so many companies and so many people invite Jotaka to come speak. The eloquence, the insight has been amazing. If any of you in the audience want to book her, have a company want to book her, JotakaEaddy.com, you got to go check it out. But in our final moments, Jotaka, share some parting thoughts and ideas as we are, again, continue to grow and continue to think about the innovation and what's going on around the world.
Yeah, thank you, Chet, for that. You know, I want to say this in finally in closing. Three thoughts. Number one, for each and every one of you that is sitting in the audience, particularly those of you who are new to NFT, we're just trying to figure it out. If you have any self-doubt, I want you to remind yourself that you belong and that you are absolutely enough. Because newsflash, we're all figuring out in this industry. It's a new industry, it's new. We're all trying to figure it out. And I think sometimes we find ourselves around buzzwords and we're confused and we're like, well, is this really for me? And we're hesitating. You're enough. Number two, I would challenge each and every one of us to not only to take up space, but make sure that we're creating space, making sure that our industries are robust and diverse, that our cap tables are diverse, that our management is diverse, that our workforce is diverse, and that our consumer base is diverse. That's so important. And third and finally, I think it's so important for us to make sure that as we are moving about this industry, that we're constantly reminded that we have an opportunity to do something great together. And the only way that we can achieve that is that if we are very intentional about being inclusive and making sure that we leave no one behind. That is the great opportunity of Web 3.0. That's the great opportunity of NFT and Web 3 is for us to ensure that we get it right and that we don't leave anybody behind. Because if we leave others behind, I believe that we don't fully realize the greatness that is the power that we all have. Thank you so much.
So Jotaka, this has been amazing. Thank you all. This is such a fantastic opportunity. And I think as everyone's heard today, the big idea is take away from the impact, and as you clap, it's making a pact with yourself to take this back and actually use it in your own life. It's not about just sitting and listening to something. It's literally about taking it and employing it in your own life, because it's not about one person making a difference. It's about all of us making a difference. Thank you all so much today. Please give Jotaka another big round of applause. And thank you all.